Daf Kuf Chav Hey Amud Beis will begin Kuf Chav Hey Amud Aleph, the Mishnah at the bottom. Zok the Mishnah, Evan Shebekiruya, if there's a stone in the shell of a gourd. So if you take a melon or something like that, hollow it out. They used to use that as a bucket to draw water. But it's only usable if it has a weight. You have the shell of a melon, a gourd. Once it's hollowed out and it's dried out, then it doesn't have much weight. So they used to put a stone in it to help it sink to the bottom and sink into the water so that they can draw out the water. Now a stone normally is muksa. So I haven't shivakiruya if it's secured to the kiruya, to the gourd, so that when you draw the water it won't fall out, then it's not considered muksa, and you can draw water with it. Then but if not, then it's not considered part of the kli, and ein memalamba. So the Gemara will discuss the details of this, and in what situation, where is it fastened, when is it fastened, etc. We'll see in the Gemara. This is we have a vine that's tied to a pitcher, so they use the vine also to use it to help as with the pitcher to pour, to draw from it, to pour with it. It becomes like a handle for the pitcher. You can draw water with it on Shabbos, even though a vine is normally muksa. But here also, if it's tied to the pitcher, it's considered part of the pitcher, you can use it on Shabbos. A different discussion, if you have something to close up a window, it's like a shutter, or to block the window. When it is attached, it's tied, and the rope is short, so that when it's not fastened into the window, into the opening, when it's not used as a shutter, it hangs down, but it doesn't reach the ground. So it's suspended, and it doesn't reach the ground. Then you're allowed to use it. It's not a problem of closing the window with it, of using it as a shutter. It's not a problem. But but if not, you can't. Now the issue over here seems to be different than what we were talking about before. This does not seem to be a muksa dikashayla, because when you designate the shutter, even if it's a board, a piece of wood, but by having intent that you're using it as a shutter, it's no longer muksa. The issue over here is when you put something into a building, it's baina. Now the question is over here you already have a binyan. You are now adding on to it in a temporary way. Is this a problem of being baina? So Rabbi Lezer says that if it's when you tie it to the window or to the building, and when it's not being used, it's suspended from the ground, it's part and parcel of the structure. So therefore, putting it back in is not a question, it's not a problem of being meisav ala oil, of being meisav ala oil arai. You're not considered to be adding on to it in a way that it would be considered binyan. It's not considered being meisav ala oil arai because it's already part and parcel of the structure. But if it's now on the ground, when it's not being used, it's now lying on the ground, that looks like you're building. That looks like you're taking something and now inserting it into the structure and adding on to it. And therefore it would be a problem of a binyan. But Chachamar and Benkach, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's suspended or if it lies on the ground. As we'll see from the Gemara, it doesn't even matter if it's not even tied. They do not aser being meisav al oil arai, and therefore there's no binyandik problem here to begin with. But we'll see this in greater detail in the Gemara. Zok the Gemara, Tzanan Hasam, we learned in a Mishnah, Daf Kuf Mem Beis, Even Shal Pei HaChavis, if there's a stone on top of a barrel, it's used as a covering for the barrel. Ma'atal Tzidav Hinafel, so he wants to remove it, and the stone is muksa, and it can't be removed. So what does he do? He tilts it on its side, and the stone falls off. And the Mishnah continues and says, if it's amongst other chaviyos, it's bein chaviyos, and by tilting it off, the stone might fall and break the other chaviyos. There, he says he picks it up and he takes it to another place where there are no chaviyah surrounding it, then he tilts it and the stone falls off. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, so Rav Yochanan qualifies this Mishnah, so Rabbi and Rav Ami's version is as follows. Not that we say he can pick it up and take it to another place and tilt it on its side. That's only where he forgot the stone there. It was left unintentionally before Shabbos. If he put it there intentionally, then the barrel becomes a basis l'davar also, and it can't be moved at all. Rav Yosef, Amar Rav Asi, Amar Rav Yochanan, but Rav Yosef and Rav Asi, they have a different version of what Rav Yochanan said. They said, that's only when he forgot it. But if you put there intentionally, then there's not even a requirement that you have to tilt it. It becomes a kli on its own right. It becomes a kli in itself. You designate it, you put it there intentionally, therefore it's designated as a lid for the barrel. It becomes a kli, and you don't have to tilt it. You don't have to do anything of that matter. You don't have to do a shinoi. So there's a machlokes if by meiniach it becomes a basis, or opposite, if by meiniach it becomes a kli in its own right. So we'll see in a moment that this has a connection to our Mishnah and the ratio of the Mishnah by the Even Shebekiruya. Now, here we have a problem over here in discussing it, is that if you say that when we said the first version that we said in the name Rambam or Ravami is that if he forgot it there. But if he was meiniach, it becomes a basis, and you can't pick it up. And then you can't pick it up, but you can tilt it. Well, even by tilting it, why isn't that a problem also? Because something which is a basis of the davar also, you can't pick it up, but you can't tilt it either. So the Achreinim, Rabbi Kiveger, etc., want to say, I'll pee the sheet of the Balamor, that over here, it's not a basis per se in the conventional sense, because the stone is really serving the barrel, serving as a lid for the barrel. So we discussed before, the Shita Balamor, that the basis al davar also is when the base is really serving the muksa thing item that's on top of it. Over here, the stone is really serving the barrel. So it's not the complete basis al davar also. And therefore, tilting it on its side, in this case, is mutter. If he would mamish want to leave it there and have the barrel hold the stone and use it as a base for the stone and to protect the stone, that would be a different situation. But in the case where it's used there as a lid for the barrel, then it's not a genuine basis. Tilting it is mutter. So this is what machlokes we have over here. If by meiniach, if he put there intentionally before Shabbos, does it now become a kli as it become ois muksa? Omer Rabba, Maisina Shmaitzin. So Rabba, who had the first version, who said Loishon al v'sheicheach, but by meiniach it's nases aboses. Omer Rabba, Maisina Shmaitzin. We can ask Kash from our Mishnah, because the Mishnah says in the Reisha, Even shebekiruya im malim bo veinu nefels malim bo. If it is secure, if the stone in the gourd is secure, so that when you use it to draw the water, the stone won't fall out, then memalim. So if we can do it, but if not, you can't. So what do you see over here? That if the stone is put into the gourd, and it's not muksa. So you see that when it's meiniach, l'chera, it seems to be like the version of Rav Yosef Rav Asi says that when it's meiniach, it becomes part of the kli. It says in the Mishnah that if you put it in, that if it won't fall out, so you secure it in the gourd and it's not going to fall out when you draw the water, then you can use it. It's not muksa. So doesn't that show you that by meiniach that it's not a basis, it becomes part of the kli? But it's not a comparison. Awesome, Kevan Dahatka Shavadayf. And over there, he did an actual maisa. He did an act. He fastened it. He secured it to the kiruya, to the gourd. Over there, he's maida that then there it will not become a basis. It's become a kli in its own right. But over here, we're talking in the case by the stone on the chavis. he didn't do a maisa per se. He only left it there. That's different. Rav Yosef, and Rav Yosef says, on my version, the way we learn what Rav Yochanan says, we also have a kasha. We can also ask a kasha on our version. It says, it says if it's going to fall out, you can't use it. You can't be mamala with it. So what do you see over here? That even though he put it over there, even though it was meniach over there, that's not enough, and you can't be mamala. So isn't that a kasha on our version that says when he's meniach the stone on the barrel, that is enough to make it a kli v'loi? It's not a comparison. There's no connection to our case. Hasam came into loy hatka bitl batla. Over there, it can't be used without securing it, because if it's loose in the kiruya and you're going to draw water with it, it'll fall out and it'll be useless. So it has no, without doing a mice over there, it really has no function. By the stone on the chaviz, placing it over there, it serves as a lid. So he holds, therefore, that he was meniach before Shabbos. That's enough. That's enough. It shows he does a maisa, and it makes it into a kli. But over here, just placing it is not enough because it doesn't have a practical use. It's not useful that way. You therefore, over here, it has to be secured in the kiruya. The Ma'ikah, what's the machlokes in the two versions with Rabbah and B'Shem Ravami and Ravasi? What are the machlokes in the two versions? But Ma'ikah Miflagi, Mar Savra Bein and Maisa, Umar Savra Loy Bein and Maisa. That Rabbah B'Shem Ravami, he holds that just designating is not enough. Just being meniach is not enough to make it into a kli. To make it into a kli, you need a maisa. You need a maisa, and therefore, if he was meniach before Shabbos, he didn't do a maisa, it becomes a basel davar also. But Ravasi holds that no, you don't need a maisa, and the designation itself, he has to place it there, but the designation itself is sufficient, and that makes it into a kli. And they follow their shitas. Techiyasa, Rantina Amar of Chanina, Amar of Zera, Amar of Chanina, Pa'amachas, Halach Rebbe L'Makam Echad. One time, Rebbe went to a certain place. It was Erev Shabbos. Umatza Nidbech Shelavonim, and he saw a pile of stones. The stones were set aside for building. They were building materials, and they were muksa. Va'amar LeTalmidav, and he told the Talmidim Tzu v'chashu Kidei Shenei Shevalem L'Machar. Go out and have a machshav intent, so that we can use them as seats tomorrow. And therefore, with that machshava to go out and that we're going to use them, that's enough, and they'll be therefore considered to be seats, and we can therefore use them and move them. V'lo yitzrich and Rebbe l'maisa. And Rebbe did not require a maisa. But Rabbi Yochanan says yitzrich and Rebbe l'maisa. Rabbi Yochanan says no, a maisa is required. So now we're going in the shita of Rabbi Yochanan. And the machlokes of Ravami and Ravasi is, what does Rav Yochanan require? So, my Amrlu, what was that he told them? What did Rebbe tell them? What kind of maisa was needed? Rabbi Ami Amar Tzuvalamdim Amrlu. He told them that to go and position the stones. Rami says, go and position the stones so that we won't have to move them tomorrow. Because you need, according to Rami, you need a significant maisa, and that wasn't practical. So he said, put the stones in the place where we're going to use them, so that we're not going to have to move them, because in order to move them, you'd need a maisa, and a significant maisa was required, and it wasn't practical. So put them in the proper place. And Rabbi Asi Amar Tzu v'shiv shem Amrlu, he said, go and wipe them. Wiping them clean, that's enough. That's enough, and therefore you will be able to move them. So you see, Ravasi holds that even something minor like being mishafshiv to clean them, that's enough of a maisa. And Ravami holds that no, that's not enough of a maisa. And like we have Oslo Tamaya, that by meniach, by putting the stone on the barrel, is that considered a maisa or not considered a maisa? So Oslo Tamaya. Itma. Another version of the Maisa is Rabbi Yosef ben Shaul Amar. He says, no. So as far as Shal Kairos Haya, it was not stones; it was a stack of beams beams that were used for building material. It was wood. Rav Yochanan ben Shul Omar Gosher Shel Svinaya. It was a pole of a ship. They used to have a pole in the ship and put it in front of them to see the depth of the water. So in both cases, these of course are muksa, and that was what was the question of what was going to be used for the Talmidim. Man Damar Geshush, the one who says it was the pole called Shkein Svar. Certainly, you would hold that using the wood, the beams, certainly minimal maisa would be enough. Umanda Amar Svar, but the one who says that it's a pole of Geshush, Kapitaleh, but he says a Geshush, he would say no, he would be makbid, because that person is makbid on that would be considered muksa machzar and kiyas, and there a minimal maisa would not be enough. So both of them are holding, not like Ravami, they're holding Ravas, then a minimal maisa would be enough. However, there's a machlokes in a case by the pole. Would you consider the pole muksa machzar and kiyas? And if it's muksa machzar and kiyas, there you certainly would need a significant maisa. Was more a shikashura if you have the vine that's tied to a pitcher, so you can use it as a handle. So kshurin like shura loy. So it seems to be that it has to be dafka tied. Lema masechet the like Shimon Gamliel. Let's say it's not like Shimon Desanya. We learn the chariya shel dekel shagodol leitzim. And if you have branches of a palm tree that were hardened, they're used for firewood. So they were now harvested for firewood. Now you change your mind. You want to use them as a bench to sit on them. You have to bundle it. You have to tie it up. And Shimon Gamliel, Aimer, ain't tzorach liksher. He says you don't have to tie it. Now in our Mishnah it says that the vine has to be tied. In here you see it doesn't have to be tied. Rav Sheshes, no. Rav Shimon Gamliel, you could say our Mishnah is like our Shimon Gamliel. We're talking in the case over here in our Mishnah with the vine, is when it's still attached. It's still attached to the branch is still attached to the grapevine. So over here, since it's attached to the grapevine, in order to now make it into a kli and to say that it's mutter, here you have to tie it up. Over there, we're talking about where it was cut already. There, Rabbi Gamliel says you don't have to tie it. So, if it's still attached to the grapevine, how can you use it as a handle? You can't use something which is mechuber lekarka. The Rabbanim were guys are on mechuber lekarka that it can't be used because you're afraid shemi yiksar. You can't use things that are attached to the ground. More answer lamata mishleish. If it's within 3 tefachim of the ground, the gzera doesn't apply. It's not on low growing items like grass. It's only on taller items that are higher than 3 tefachim. We're talking where this branch was lower than 3. Rav Ashi Omar filotim betlusha. You can say it's talking about betlusha even if it's not attached. Gzera shemi yiktaim. We're afraid over here, we're afraid over here, if he doesn't tie it up before, then our Mishnah, if he doesn't tie it, we're afraid, maybe he'll now, when he wants to use it, he'll cut it, he'll trim it, and that's makeh b'patish. So therefore, we're concerned that he might cut it over here, and that's why in our Mishnah it has to be tied. Once he ties it and he sees that it's usable, it's suitable for what he wants to use it for, then we're no longer concerned that over here is Shema Yiktim. But in the case of the Chorishal Dekel, over there, we're not concerned about it. So the question is why? What is the chilik? Why over here in our Mishnah would we say that Rabbi Gamliel, it's even going according to Rosh Gamliel rather, it's even going according to Rosh Gamliel. And he'll be moide in our Mishnah that you have to Shemi Yiktaim. What about the case of the Chorish Shal Dekel? Magen Ram says because over here it's not something that's normally used for this purpose, and therefore there is that added concern by the Chorish Shal Dekel. The Chorish Shal Dekel that over there these branches are normally they're already harvested, they're cut, they're going to be used for firewood, or could be used for this alternate purpose. We're not concerned. The window shutter. So we have the machlekes in the Mishnah. If it has to be there's a rope that ties the shutter to the building, has to be so short that when it's not closing up the window, that the shutter is dangling. And so that is the machlokes in the Mishnah. Does it have to be that short or not? So the Rebbe Lezer says that it has to be that case. The Chum say ben kach u ben kach paikin boy. We're not concerned about that. So Amar Rabba Baruch Amar Rabbi Yechanan call Maidim Shein Oisim Oil Arai B'Tchil B'Shabbos. Everyone is Maida that you can't make an oil roof, even a temporary roof. You can't make it on Yom Tov. You can't make Oisim Oil Arai B'Tchila to begin with a Yom Tov. Ein Tzorach Lam B'Shabbos, and certainly on Shabbos you can't make it. Lo Nechel Koel Lo Haisev. The question is where you can add to something, whether it is something that's already existing, that you can make. Can you make a temporary addition to something that's already existing? Rabbi Lezer says, you can't. You can't add on to an existing structure, even temporary addition, not on Yom Tov, certainly not on Shabbos. So therefore, if putting the window shade into the window, you can't do it. It would be also. Even though it's temporary, you're adding to the existing structure. It's also. Now, if it's dangling, when it's not fixed to the window, the rope is short and it's dangling, then it's part and parcel of the building. It's not resting on the ground. It's not separate from the building. Then even when it's not in the window, it's dangling, it's still considered part of it. You're not considered being ma'isiv. So therefore it's mutter. So Rabbi Lezer says, but the Chum say, no, you could be Maisiv on Shabbos and certainly on Yom Tov, and therefore it doesn't have to be dangling, even if it's on the ground. And it comes out that even if it's not even tied at all, it's a temporary addition to an existing structure, therefore it's mutter. The question arises as, why do we say by the case of the Chorei Shabbat that we're not concerned? By the case of the vine, we're concerned that he might trim it. Why aren't we concerned by the case of the Chorei Shabbat? So Rashi says, because we're only concerned over here because it's soft, you might easily come to trim it. Therefore, it's more of a concern there. Where it's hard, it can't be easily trimmed, then we're not concerned. Now the question arises is that, well, over here, Shimon Gamliel rather, he says you don't even have to do a Maisa by the Chorei Shabbat. You don't even have to do it. But both Ravami and Ravasi agreed. They agreed that by the stone on the barrel that you need some sort of Maisa. You need a Maisa over there. So what's the chilik? So the Magen Avraham says you only need a Maisa on something which is not normally used for that purpose. Something which is used for that purpose, there you don't need the Maisa. So it's only of the case by the Evan or similar cases that have that concern. So you have the window shutter. So Rabbi Lezer said that if when you remove it, it's dangling, then you can put it back and take it on Shabbos. Otherwise you can't. Chum say it makes no difference. Everyone agrees that you cannot make a roof, even a temporary roof, that you can't do it on Yom Tov, and certainly not on Shabbos. You can't make a temporary roof. The question is, can you add and make a temporary addition to a permanent structure? Rabbi Lezer says you can't. Not on Yom Tov and certainly not on Shabbos. And therefore, if you put the window shutter in, you're being moisiv on the oil, even though it's temporary, but he holds that it's also. Now, if when you remove it, it's dangling, it's not resting on the ground, so it's still part and parcel of the binyan, it's not even considered to being that you're moisiv anything, it's still considered to be there. But if when you remove it, it's dangling, it's not dangling, it's resting on the ground, then it's considered to be a hoisafa, an addition, and it's also. But the Chacham say, so therefore it doesn't matter, and therefore it doesn't have to be dangling, and it doesn't even have to be tied, because they hold a temporary addition to permanent structure is mutter, even on Shabbos.